The storm had passed, leaving the forest in a hush, only broken by dripping branches and the soft groan of trees settling back into stillness. Ranger Elias Ward moved through the soaked undergrowth, his boots sinking into the earth where a pine had fallen. Beneath its tangled roots, a faint glint caught his eye, metal, not stone. He knelt, brushed away the mud, and uncovered a circular hatch with military-grade bolts, rusted but intact. Curiosity outweighed caution. With effort, he pried it open. A gust of cold air rose from below, carrying the faint hum of running power. He hesitated, flashlight trembling slightly, then began his descent into the dark. What kind of place stays alive underground when the world above forgets it ever existed? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Rainwater dripped from the pine needles, and the mist clung low to the ground. Elias Ward trudged through the soaked forest, his boots sinking into soft mud. He scanned the trail, noting broken branches, the aftershock of last night's storm. Then he heard it, a faint metallic thrum beneath the whispering wind. He froze, listening. The forest was silent, not even the cry of a bird. He knelt near a fallen cedar, its massive roots twisted from the earth. Beneath the dark soil, something glimmered. He brushed it away with his gloved hand and felt a vibration, steady, rhythmic, wrong. He pressed his palm to the ground. The hum was alive, pulsing like a buried heart. He drew back, uneasy. "That's no thunder," he muttered. Elias marked the spot in his logbook and turned for home. As he walked, the sound followed him faintly beneath the earth, like something aware of his presence. Back at his cabin, the wood stove ticked softly, and rain pattered against the roof. The air smelled of damp bark and old coffee. Elias poured a cup, sat at his desk, and began writing his report. Storm damage moderate. Ridge section unstable. He stopped mid-sentence. The hum again. Not outside this time. He turned off the radio, but the sound didn't fade. It came from below. Elias knelt, placing a hand on the floorboards. The vibration trembled faintly under his skin, as though something deep underground was answering him. He stayed like that a long moment, palm pressed flat, listening. "Just settling timber," he whispered. "That's all." But the look in his eyes betrayed him. Later he sat on the porch, staring into the grey woods. The forest was still too quiet. No birds, no rustle of life. Only that faint undercurrent thrumming beneath the soil. "You're getting jumpy, old man," he said to himself. He lifted his binoculars and swept the tree line. Nothing until a dull glint flashed between the pines, low to the ground. It wasn't sunlight. Too steady, too cold. He lowered the binoculars, breath held. The glint came from the direction of the uprooted cedar. He grabbed his pack and set out again. Heart hammering, the deeper he went. The louder the hum grew, rising and falling in waves. Like breath through stone, when he reached the cedar, the glimmer was brighter. Mud clung to a smooth metal surface, circular, half-buried. He crouched and scraped the soil away, bolts, rusted hinges. A hatch. The vibration pulsed harder now, strong enough to shake the loose dirt. Elias hesitated, eyes wide. Then he jammed a branch under the edge and pried. Metal groaned. A stale draft escaped, cold and sharp with the scent of iron. The sound from below deepened into a low, electric tone. He let the branch fall, stepping back, chest heaving. What in God's name? He shone his flashlight into the narrow opening. Nothing but blackness. The beam vanished into it, swallowed whole. He waited for something to happen. Nothing did. Only the hum, steady and patient. Elias closed the hatch slowly and stood there in silence. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening. A distant rumble of thunder crawled over the hills. "There's something under there," he murmured. Something that never stopped running. He turned toward home. That night, rain came again. The cabin walls creaked in the wind. Elias sat at his desk, the lamp flickering, as he tuned through radio frequencies. Static hissed softly through the speaker. He twisted the dial and paused. There it was. The same low hum, matching perfectly with what he'd heard in the forest. He adjusted the knob until the two tones merged into one seamless vibration. For a few seconds, the sound filled the cabin, deep and harmonic. The lamp dimmed, flickered, then went dark. Elias froze, eyes wide. The hum continued, vibrating through the table, through the floor, through him. He turned toward the window. His reflection stared back, ghost-like, against the rain-streaked glass, and just beyond his reflection, far off through the misted trees, a faint orange glow pulsed once beneath the ground. He whispered into the darkness. Barely audible. "You're not done yet, are you?" The hum faded slowly, sinking back into silence. The lamp blinked once and steadied again, but Elias didn't move. Outside, the forest was still. Inside, the air hummed with things that shouldn't exist. He reached for his logbook and began to write, his hand trembling slightly. Unidentified metallic resonance beneath ridge. Possibly man-made structure. Recommend further investigation. He stopped, staring at the words. Then he underlined man-made twice. The ink bled faintly into the page as thunder rolled across the valley. Elias set the pen down, eyes fixed on the floorboards. Beneath him, for just a heartbeat, something answered back. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving the forest soaked and steaming. Elias Ward stood again at the base of the uprooted cedar, shovel in hand. The mud was slick beneath his boots, and his breath came out in short white bursts in the morning chill. The memory of last night's hum still haunted his dreams, if he'd even slept at all. He stared at the hatch. The circular metal surface was etched with faint markings, symbols worn by time. He scraped a gloved finger across them. They weren't letters, but they weren't random either. Curves and intersecting lines, like something stamped with intention. He muttered under his breath, "You've been down here a while." The latch groaned when he pried it again, heavier now from the weight of soaked earth. With a grunt, it finally gave. Cold air spilled out, damp and metallic. His flashlight beam cut through the dark, catching the outline of a ladder descending into the ground. He hesitated only once before climbing in. The metal rungs were slick. Rust flaked under his hands. The deeper he went, the colder it became. A low vibration trembled through the walls, steady, alive, mechanical. He counted 30 steps before his boots met concrete. The air was heavy, stale, yet filled with an almost imperceptible hum, the same pulse he'd felt beneath his cabin floor. His flashlight swept across the narrow chamber. Dust floated through the beam like slow-moving snow. The walls were lined with pipes and cables. Old machinery stood silent, dials frozen in mid-measure. Elias whispered, "What the hell is this place?" He followed the corridor, each step echoing into unseen depths. A faded sign, half buried in grime, read Sector 7B. The paint was chipped, but the lettering was military, clean, regulated, familiar. That recognition sank cold into him. He moved on, the hum growing louder. It came from deeper within, beyond a sealed metal door, slightly ajar. When he pushed it open, light met him, a dim electric glow flickering from machines that still worked after decades. Rows of computers lined the room, large, boxy, relics from another era. Their screens buzzed faintly with static. His central console blinked once every few seconds. As if breathing, he approached slowly, brushing dust from a terminal. The keyboard was coated in grime. He tapped one key. The monitor flared, words flickering across the black screen before fading. Access restricted. Level red clearance required. Elias blinked. "You got to be kidding me." He reached for his radio instinctively. "Base, this is Ranger Ward. I need to report static." He tried again, turning the dial. "Base, do you copy?" The only reply was the hum, deeper now, as if mocking him. He lowered the radio, eyes narrowing. "Guess it's just you and me." Moving to another table, he found a binder sealed in plastic, yellowed with age. He tore it open carefully. The pages inside were typewritten, reports stamped, classified. The first page read, "Project Deep Veil, initiated 1956, authorized personnel only." His brow furrowed as he scanned the notes. Phrases jumped out in fragments. acoustic field generator, containment anomalies, behavioral interference. He turned another page. A photograph slipped free, a black and white image of soldiers standing beside the same hatch, freshly installed. In the background, the forest looked younger, untouched, and standing among the men, in a crisp uniform, was someone who looked disturbingly familiar. Elias froze. The face was his grandfather's. He sank into a nearby chair, the metal creaking under his weight. His mind raced. His grandfather had been stationed in the Pacific, never once mentioned any post here. And yet, there he was, in this underground world no one should have known existed. He rubbed his temple, trying to steady his breath. "What were you doing down here, old man?" The hum deepened again, resonating through the floor. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Something in the distance shifted, a metallic groan like a door unlocking. Elias stood, flashlight sweeping the corridor. "Hello?" No answer. Just a rhythmic sound, like slow, deliberate footsteps echoing from the dark. He tightened his grip on the light. "If someone's down here, you'd better speak up." The steps stopped. He turned back toward the console, only to find the screen alive again, text crawling rapidly, system reactivation in progress. "Stand by." The hum became a roar. Lights flickered to life one by one along the corridor, illuminating rusted bulkheads and abandoned crates marked U.S. Army property. Elias stumbled backward, shielding his eyes from the glare. What did I just turn on? Somewhere far below, metal clanged. Something massive began to move. He bolted for the ladder, heart hammering. As he climbed, the walls trembled with mechanical life, like a beast waking from a long sleep. He emerged into daylight, gasping, mud streaking his clothes. The hatch below him vibrated, a deep bass rumble shaking the ground. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything stopped. The hum went silent. The forest returned to stillness. Elias stood over the hatch, chest heaving, eyes locked on it as though it might open again on its own. He didn't know what he'd awakened, but the certainty settled in his gut like a stone. Whatever this place was, it wasn't meant to be found. He turned toward the cabin, muttering under his breath, "I need to make a call." But as he reached the porch, his radio crackled to life on its own. A voice, flat, mechanical, distorted. "Ranger Ward, do not attempt further access. Remain at your location. Military personnel en route." Elias froze. He hadn't said a word into the transmitter. The line went dead, and in the distance, from beyond the tree line, came the faint thump of helicopter blades. The low, rhythmic thump of helicopter blades carried through the trees long before the craft appeared. Elias stood in the clearing, his boots sunk halfway in the mud, staring toward the distant sound. The sky, pale and bruised from the morning haze, seemed to tremble with each rotation. He had seen military movements before, back when he wore a uniform himself. But this was different, faster, sharper, and too precise for a simple rescue or inspection. Whoever they were, they had come prepared. By the time the first helicopter emerged from the fog, the wind from its blades bent the trees in a sweeping arc. Elias shielded his face, coat whipping around him. 3 figures in black fatigues jumped down before the craft even touched ground. Their helmets bore no insignia. One of them approached, a woman with calm, steel-gray eyes behind her visor. "Ranger Ward?" He nodded. "That's me. You're advised to step away from the site." Her tone was clipped, professional. She gestured to 2 others, who moved past him toward the hatch. "I'm the one who found it," Elias said, steady but firm. "There's equipment down there still running. You might want to know what it is before you—" She cut him off. "You'll be debriefed shortly. Please cooperate," he frowned. "Debriefed? I called in a maintenance report, not a national emergency." Her visor hid her expression. "You made contact with restricted property, sir. That site falls under historical protection and classified jurisdiction." Historical. Elias gave a dry chuckle. "Lady, that thing's humming like it was built yesterday." She didn't answer. The other agents were setting up a perimeter, yellow beacons flashing around the hatch, measuring instruments ticking quietly. The ground trembled again, faint but distinct, as if something below acknowledged their presence. Elias stepped closer, lowering his voice. Whatever that place is, I think it's still active. We know. She turned slightly, her voice softening for the first time. That's why we're here. They escorted him back to the cabin, now surrounded by equipment and cables. A small portable tent had been erected in the clearing, communications gear, satellite link, and what looked like a containment scanner. Men in black uniforms moved like clockwork, each knowing their role without words. Elias watched from his porch as they operated. Mind telling me who exactly you are? Civilian Oversight Division, the woman replied, removing her helmet. Her hair was silver at the temples, tied neatly back. You can call me Agent Hale. Never heard of it. You're not supposed to. He raised an eyebrow. Comforting. Hale studied him for a long moment. You weren't supposed to find that hatch. The storm exposed part of it, correct? That's right. Roots tore up the ground. Thought it was debris from the Firewatch installations back in the 60s. She nodded slowly, almost to herself. It's older than that. How old? Her gaze drifted toward the tree line. Old enough that every man who worked on it signed an oath of silence. Most didn't live long enough to break it. Elias leaned on the railing. My grandfather served in the army. I found a photo of him down there. He was standing right by that hatch. That got her attention. Your grandfather's name? Captain Robert Ward. She exhaled, a faint trace of surprise slipping through her composure. Then you have more connection to this than you realize. Before he could ask, a sharp buzz came from one of the field monitors. Hale turned as one of her technicians approached with a handheld device, a small black box, dented but intact. Found it just inside the access corridor, the man said. Looks like a recorder. Hale took it, examining the worn label. Property of Project Deep Veil. Elias recognized the name immediately. Same as the documents I found. She looked at him sharply. You opened the file. I read enough to know it wasn't about forestry. The agent pressed a button on the side of the box. A distorted crackle filled the air, followed by a faint male voice, old and weary. If anyone finds this recording, it means containment has failed. Do not attempt to restart the field generator. Do not reactivate the resonance core. The forest will not hold it twice. The transmission ended in static. Elias felt a chill move through him. What did he mean by that? Hale shut off the device. It doesn't matter. The bunker's sealed now. But even as she said it, a faint hum rose again beneath their feet, deeper this time, rhythmic and steady. The technicians exchanged uncertain glances. Elias stepped forward. That sound, it started after I went down there. I think I triggered something. Hale didn't reply. Her eyes were fixed on the black box, her thumb brushing the worn seal. No, it started before you ever touched that hatch. We just didn't hear it yet. From somewhere deep within the forest came a low metallic groan, like the earth shifting. Birds scattered from the treetops. The hum rose again. Elias met her gaze. What's buried down there, Agent Hale? She hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. Not what? Who? Night had fallen across the valley, though no stars pierced the sky. The forest was unnaturally still, as if the trees themselves were listening. Elias sat by the cabin window, watching the faint blue lights flicker where the agents worked near the hatch. He could hear their muffled voices, the metallic click of equipment, and the unceasing hum beneath it all, steady, deliberate, too alive for comfort. His mind refused to rest. The words from that recorder haunted him. Containment has failed. What had they been trying to contain? And what could possibly be powerful enough that the military would hide it under miles of forest? He reached for the old box of keepsakes by the hearth, photographs, medals, a folded flag. His grandfather's eyes stared up from one photo, stern, proud, and distant. Robert Ward had always been a mystery, even to his own family. Elias had grown up hearing that he died during a training accident. Now that explanation felt hollow. He turned the photo over. Invaded ink was a number, 7B, the same code painted on the walls beneath the hatch. His pulse quickened. He grabbed his lantern and coat, stepped out into the cold night, and crossed the clearing toward the excavation tent. The perimeter guards watched him but didn't stop him. Perhaps they sensed he wasn't here to interfere. only to understand. Inside, Agent Hale stood over a map spread across a folding table. The black box recorder rested beside it, silent now. She looked up as Elias entered. "You should be resting. I've done enough of that for one lifetime," he replied evenly. "I know my grandfather worked on this project. I need to know what he did here." Hale studied him for a long moment, then gestured for him to come closer. "You're not cleared for classified material, Ranger. But since you're already entangled in this, I'll tell you what little I can. I'll take what I can get." She pointed to a marked area on the map, an underground complex branching deep beneath the ridge. Project Deep Veil was a post-war initiative. 1950s, the government was experimenting with low-frequency resonance fields, energy that could influence biological behavior. The idea was to create a defensive network, something that could deter enemy incursions by altering the way the human brain processed fear. Elias frowned. "You mean mind control?" "In a primitive sense," she admitted. But something went wrong. The field didn't just affect people. It interacted with the environment, roots, minerals, even the water table. The whole forest became responsive. "Responsive?" he repeated, uneasy. She nodded. It started creating echo feedback, self-perpetuating waves. They shut it down before it spread, or so they thought. Your grandfather's unit was assigned to seal the generator core. No one's been down there since. Elias stared at the map, a dull ache settling in his chest. "And you think it's waking back up?" Hale folded her arms. "It never really stopped. It just went quiet." A technician called from the hatch entrance. "Agent Hale, we found something, hidden compartment behind the main door." They hurried outside. The team had pried open a rusted storage panel. Inside was a metal case, stamped with the faded crest of the U.S. Army Signal Corps. Hale opened it carefully. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, lay a small, leather-bound journal. The initials R.W. were engraved on the cover. Elias's throat tightened. "That's his handwriting." Hale hesitated, then handed it to him. "It's yours by right." He opened it slowly, the pages yellowed and brittle. The entries began in 1957, written in a precise, deliberate hand. At first, they read like standard field reports, technical logs, weather notes, minor malfunctions. But gradually the tone changed. The words grew fragmented, desperate, field amplitude increasing without manual input. Men reporting dreams of whispers underground. Containment perimeter compromised. Trees bending toward signal source. Generator must never be reactivated. Then the final entry, "If anyone finds this, we failed. The veil learned to listen. It remembers the sound of us. It's waiting for someone to speak again." Elias felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. He closed the book and looked at Hale. He knew this would happen. She didn't respond, only stared toward the dark tree line where the wind stirred the fog. "We've been monitoring low-frequency readings since last month. The storm didn't wake it. It drew it closer to the surface." Elias gripped the journal. "So what happens now?" "Now," she said quietly, "we try to keep it from spreading again." A tremor rolled beneath their feet, faint but unmistakable. The air vibrated, carrying a deep, resonant tone that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The lights flickered, the technicians froze. One shouted, "Seismic activity! It's building under the ridge." Hale turned toward Elias. "Get back inside the cabin, now." He stood his ground. "That's not just seismic activity. That's the same rhythm I felt yesterday. It's alive." She met his eyes. "Exactly why you need to leave the clearing." But it was too late. The hatch lid began to rattle, dust billowing from its edges. The hum climbed into a throbbing pulse, and the ground seemed to breathe beneath them. Hale barked orders. "Seal the access point!" "Move." Elias backed away, heart pounding, his grandfather's journal clutched in one hand. The hum deepened into a sound he could almost understand, a pattern, a voice too vast for words. He whispered to himself, "What have we buried under this mountain?" The answer, if it existed, was still rising from the dark. The night stretched deep and restless. Elias couldn't sleep, not after the tremor that rolled through the valley like a warning. The lights around the perimeter still glowed, throwing long shadows across the wet ground. The air carried a faint charge, as though lightning still lingered somewhere unseen. He sat at the edge of his bed, the lantern casting a dim circle around him. The journal lay open on his lap. Every word his grandfather had written replayed in his mind. The veil learned to listen. He reached the back of the journal and noticed something odd. The leather cover was thicker near the binding, uneven. He pressed gently, and a small section of the spine gave way. A hollow compartment slid open, revealing a smooth metal object the size of his thumb. It was cylindrical, engraved with the same symbol that had marked the hatch, a circle intersected by two lines. It felt cold, far colder than the air around it. When he lifted it, a faint hum pulsed through his fingers. Elias whispered, "The resonance core key." He didn't know how he knew its name, but the words formed naturally, as if carried from someone else's memory. Outside, the wind rose, rattling the window panes. Then came a low, distant boom, muffled, deep beneath the earth. He rushed to the porch. The camp near the hatch was chaos. Soldiers shouted orders. The generators flickered. Agent Hale was already there, headset pressed to her ear, eyes narrowed toward the tree line. "What happened?" Elias called out. She turned sharply. "Something triggered the base's main relay. We're reading energy spikes all across the sublevels." Elias pulled the metal cylinder from his pocket. "Would this have anything to do with it?" Her eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "It was hidden in my grandfather's journal." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "That key interfaces directly with the resonance core. Without it, the system shouldn't be able to start." "Well, it started," he said grimly. Another tremor shook the ground, sending ripples through puddles of rainwater. The hatch shuddered violently, a thin mist escaping from the seams like breath. Lights from the soldiers' equipment blinked erratically, their frequencies syncing with the rhythmic pulse rising from below. "Everyone back!" Hale shouted. Elias took a step forward against instinct. His eyes locked on the hatch as the hum deepened into something almost musical, a chorus of layered tones, ancient and synthetic. He said quietly, "It's calling." Hale grabbed his arm. "It's responding, not calling. It's reacting to you. To me? To that key? To your bloodline." She hesitated, then added, "It was designed with biological access parameters. The wards were part of the original project. The system recognizes you." Elias stared at her, the implications sinking in. "My family helped build this thing?" "They didn't just build it," Hale said. "They became part of it." The hatch gave a sharp metallic crack. Bolts burst from their housings. The ground glowed faintly beneath it, light seeping through the soil like molten glass. The soldiers scrambled to contain it, deploying heavy tarps, power dampeners, but nothing worked. The air around the clearing began to vibrate, making it hard to breathe. The hum resonated in Elias's chest, matching his heartbeat. He fell to his knees, clutching the key. "I can feel it," he gasped. "It's alive." Hale crouched beside him, shouting over the noise. "If you can feel it, you can shut it down. That key might still override the signal." Elias looked toward the hatch, the pulsing light reflecting in his eyes. "What if I make it worse?" Her voice softened, the first trace of fear breaking through her usual control. "If you don't try, we'll all find out what containment failure really means." He nodded once. Then, gripping the key tightly, he ran toward the hatch. The air was dense, humming like 1,000 unseen wings. When he reached the edge, he pressed the cylinder against the metal surface. The symbol on its face flared blue. Instantly, the light beneath the ground surged. A tone, clear and sharp, split the night. Then silence, deep and total. For a moment, nothing moved. The fog seemed to hang frozen. The hum was gone. Hale and the others waited, weapons half raised. "Did it stop?" someone whispered. Elias turned back to answer, but before he could, the hatch began to rotate on its own, slow and deliberate. The metal shifted inward, revealing a shaft filled with pale blue light. A wave of cold air washed over them, smelling of ozone and stone. From within, faint silhouettes flickered. Mechanical forms, or perhaps something older. Hale stepped beside him, her voice barely audible. "You didn't shut it down, Ranger. You unlocked it." Elias peered down into the glowing depths. The hum returned, softer now, almost like a heartbeat. He pocketed the key. "Then I'm going down there again." Hale caught his arm. "You won't come back up the same." He met her gaze. "None of us will." The soldiers exchanged nervous glances, but no one moved to stop him. They knew somehow that whatever had been sealed below wasn't finished with him yet. Elias began to descend the ladder, light painting his face in shades of blue and silver. The hum grew louder, yet strangely soothing, like a memory awakening from deep sleep. Halfway down, he looked up at Hale one last time. "If I don't make it, burn this place to the ground." Her reply was steady, but her eyes betrayed her fear. "We already tried once." And then Elias disappeared into the light below, swallowed by the secret his family had left behind. The ladder groaned as Elias descended deeper, each rung colder than the last. The light below pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, alive, deliberate. As he reached the bottom, the shaft opened into a vast, dome-shaped chamber lined with metal panels and glowing conduits. The air was crisp, sterile, carrying a faint hum that resonated in his bones. He took a cautious step forward. The ground beneath his boots was glass-smooth, like obsidian polished over centuries. Around the perimeter, massive cylindrical tanks stood in silence, their interiors obscured by a milky vapor. Strange markings etched into their sides glowed faintly. Some looked mathematical, others almost organic, like roots or veins. Elias whispered, "What is this place?" His voice echoed oddly, doubling back at him, distorted by unseen acoustics. Then he noticed something hovering a few feet above the ground, a sphere about the size of a human head, floating effortlessly in the air. It shimmered faintly, like a soap bubble holding its shape against gravity. Drawn by curiosity, he reached out a hand. The instant his fingers brushed its surface, the chamber flickered with light. The walls rippled with projected images, scenes flashing in rapid succession, soldiers in old uniforms, engineers welding machinery, and a man who looked alarmingly familiar. Elias staggered back. The man in the vision was his grandfather, wearing the same ranger badge Elias now carried. The voice that followed was calm and clipped, echoing through the dome. Project Deep Veil, Day 71. Phase 2 resonance test successful. Biological synchronization achieved through Ward line access key. The forest remained stable, then a pause. The image froze on his grandfather's face, tired, resolute, and deeply afraid. "If anyone hears this, the system must remain sealed. It's not guarding us from the outside world. It's guarding them from what's beneath." The sphere dimmed, the projections vanishing as quickly as they came. Elias stood motionless, his heart hammering in his chest. "They built this on top of something else," he murmured. "Something alive." He turned toward the tanks. For the first time, faint movement stirred behind the foggy glass, shadows shifting slowly like figures in deep water. A shape pressed briefly against the inside of one cylinder, leaving an outline of a hand that didn't look human. He stumbled backward just as the intercom above him crackled to life. "Ranger Ward, this is Agent Hale. Do you copy?" He grabbed his radio. "I'm here. The base is active. There's something moving down here." Static buzzed, then Hale's voice again. "We're detecting power surges. The upper hatch sealed itself the moment you crossed threshold. You're trapped inside." Elias glanced toward the ladder. A heavy iris-like door had closed over it, seamless and solid. Panic fluttered in his throat. "Hale, I saw recordings. My grandfather was part of this. He said the system was meant to guard something below." "Below?" Hale repeated. "There's no record of additional sub-levels." "There is now." The radio crackled again, faint distortion twisting her next words. "You need to find a control terminal. Try to stabilize the resonance before—" The signal cut off completely, replaced by a faint electronic whisper, almost like breathing. Then the chamber lights flickered. The tanks around him began to thaw, ice melting away in rivulets. One of them hissed open slightly, just enough for a hand, pale, jointed wrong, to slip through the gap before retracting. Elias took a step back, gripping the resonance core key tightly. "I'm not your enemy." he said to the shadows, unsure why he said it or who he was saying it to. The floating sphere pulsed again, responding to his voice. A low hum filled the air, and text appeared across the curved walls. Biological access confirmed. Control sequence rebooting. The ground trembled violently, knocking him off balance. Light beams shot from the walls into the tanks, and the liquid inside began to drain. Through the swirling mist, Elias caught glimpses of shapes, humanoid but elongated, faces masked with metallic implants that glowed faintly blue. One tank shattered. Glass exploded outward in a cloud of vapor, and a figure collapsed onto the floor. It wasn't human, not entirely. Its skin was translucent, its veins shining like circuitry beneath. It lifted its head toward Elias, its voice thin but clear. "Ward," it said, speaking his name. "You opened the gate." Elias stumbled back, his pulse racing. "Who are you?" The being tilted its head, its expression almost sorrowful. "We are the memory you buried." The veil remembers. The observation sphere emitted another burst of light, illuminating both of them in pale blue. Images flashed again, battles in the forest, experiments gone wrong. His grandfather sealing the hatch while shouting orders to retreat. Elias whispered, "He didn't build a bunker. He built a prison." The being rose slowly, unsteady on its feet. "And you," it said, voice trembling like an old echo, "are the one who opened the door." From above, a faint, distant rumble vibrated through the metal floors. Helicopter blades. The military was moving fast, but now they were too late. Elias turned toward the main corridor stretching beyond the chamber, lit by an eerie bioluminescent glow. The being followed a few steps behind, silent. Whatever this base was built to contain was waking up, and he was at the center of it. Elias steadied his breathing as he stepped into the narrow corridor. The being followed silently, its gait unsteady but purposeful, every movement graceful in a strange, deliberate way. The walls pulsed with dim blue light, synchronized with the rhythm of his own heartbeat. The air was warmer here, damp, humming faintly with the sound of circulation, blood or current he couldn't tell. The floor beneath his boots was no longer metal. It felt like hardened roots or veins, organic but engineered, something between nature and design. Along the walls, symbols flickered, rearranging themselves in patterns that reminded him of constellations he used to trace as a boy beside his father's telescope. He turned slightly toward the being. "What are you?" It hesitated, voice soft and layered with echoes. "We were once the Watchers, bound to observe, to maintain the veil between what grows above and what sleeps below." "The veil," Elias muttered. "The project my grandfather worked on." The being inclined its head. "Your blood remembers the pact." The wardens swore to guard the passage. But time makes even the strongest promises fade. As they walked deeper, the corridor widened into a grand hall, filled with spiraling conduits that glowed faintly. They weaved across the ceiling like arteries, connecting dozens of sealed doors. In the center stood a monolithic structure, the neural conduit. Thick, translucent tubes pulsed with light that seemed to breathe. Occasionally, the light dimmed, replaced by a faint tremor, as if something deep within was stirring. Elias approached cautiously. Embedded in the base was a small terminal, old, mechanical, lined with physical switches and a faded screen. Dust coated the keys, but one faintly glowed. Marked with the word "Access." He pressed it, the machine hummed, and lines of text appeared on the display. Veil node 07, status, partial lockdown, core interface damaged, primary sentinel, offline. Then, after a pause, user recognized. Elias Ward, lineage key accepted. The being stepped closer, its eyes flickering with faint light. "It remembers you," Elias swallowed. "No, it remembers my name, my family." The machine beeped again. Warning: biosynchronization incomplete. Neural channels compromised. Unauthorized access may cause system corruption. Elias stared at the conduit. If this thing's a network, maybe it holds records, files from when this place was built. Before he could continue, The floor shuddered. The tubes above began to shift, their glow dimming. A low rumble echoed through the hall, like distant thunder rolling underground. The being tensed. "They know," it whispered. "The others have awakened." Others. The sentinels. The ones who never stopped keeping watch. From the far end of the hall, one of the sealed doors began to open. It peeled back with a deep metallic groan, revealing a shadowed chamber beyond. A tall figure emerged, human-shaped but encased in ancient machinery. Its face was hidden behind a cracked visor, its movements rigid and deliberate. Elias instinctively stepped back. The being raised its hand, as though recognizing the figure. "He served in silence," it murmured, "until the world forgot him." The figure's voice came through a broken speaker, distorted and hollow. "Containment breach. Unauthorized biological presence detected. Termination protocol activated," Elias shouted. "Wait! I'm not your enemy." But the sentinel raised its arm, and a blinding arc of electricity surged across the floor. Elias dove behind the terminal as sparks exploded around him. The being deflected the next surge with a pulse of blue light from its palms. "Run!" it cried. Elias scrambled to his feet, sprinting toward a narrow exit to the left. The corridor beyond twisted like a maze, walls alive with veins of light that brightened as he passed. The hum grew louder, nearly deafening. He glanced back. The being was still there, but weakening. Its glow flickered erratically as the sentinel advanced, dragging heavy steps, weapon arm glowing with renewed charge. Elias shouted, "This base! It's alive, isn't it?" The being nodded faintly. "Alive and dreaming. The forest above is its skin, the air its breath. The veil binds both worlds. If it dies, everything dies." They reached another chamber, smaller, lined with more of the pulsating conduits. Elias slammed the door behind them. The being pressed its hand to the wall, and the material sealed shut, fusing like flesh closing a wound. "Temporary," it said weakly. Elias knelt beside it. "You're hurt. It's the signal. The deeper we go, the stronger the pull. The veil is remembering everything it lost." He looked around and saw another artifact embedded in the wall, a glowing crystal core, humming faintly in rhythm with the conduits. At its base, an inscription read, "Node Heart, transfer link to central memory." He reached toward it, feeling warmth emanate through his gloves. The being's eyes widened. "Careful. And that is the heart of its memory." Elias touched it anyway. For a brief instant, his mind flooded with images. His grandfather, standing beside a vast underground lake of light. Scientists sealing doors in panic. A voice whispering, "If the veil breaks, the forest will burn." He staggered back, gasping. The being steadied him. "Now you've seen what we were meant to forget." The sentinel's pounding resumed beyond the sealed door. The wall bulged slightly under the pressure. Elias looked at the conduits, the crystal, and the trembling being beside him. "There's a way to reach the surface through this network, isn't there?" The being nodded slowly. "Through the neural spine, but it lies beyond the deep core." "Then that's where we're going." The being studied him with quiet sorrow. "If we go there, there's no turning back. You will see the truth behind the forest, and why your bloodline was chosen to keep it." Elias tightened his grip on the resonance core key. "Then I'll see it." The wall cracked behind them, sparks spilling through. The sentinel roared from the other side, metallic and furious. Elias turned toward the dark passage ahead, where the conduits converged into a spiral tunnel, glowing like the inside of a living creature. "Let's move," he said. The being nodded, its dim glow returning. Together, they stepped into the living corridor, deeper into the pulse of the veil. The tunnel narrowed before opening into an enormous vertical chamber that stretched far beyond sight. Light pulsed through hundreds of intertwined cables, blue, green, and faint gold, like veins in some colossal organism. The air was electric, vibrating with the low hum of consciousness itself. Elias stood at the edge, breath caught in his chest. He felt as though he were peering into the heart of the earth. "This is the neural spine," the being said softly, its voice reverent. "Every thought the veil has ever held passes through here." Elias looked upward. The cables vanished into darkness above, their flickering lights like distant constellations. Below, the same cables descended into what looked like a bottomless abyss, glowing faintly as they spiraled downward. "And this leads to the core?" he asked. The being nodded. "Yes, the core is where the first breach began, and where your grandfather sealed the passage. The veil's memory begins and ends there." Elias gripped the resonance core key tightly. "Then that's where I'll find the truth." They moved along a narrow catwalk that wound around the interior of the shaft. Each step sent echoes down the endless column. Occasionally, mechanical arms moved along the walls, repairing strands of the conduit, their motions slow and almost sentient. The being's faint glow reflected across the cables. "When this place was built," it said quietly, "the forest was chosen as the anchor. It provided life, roots to stabilize the veil, but the deeper they dug, the more the earth resisted." Elias glanced at it. Resisted? The planet knows balance. The humans did not. They drew power from beneath the roots, energy meant to sleep. In doing so, they awoke us. Elias absorbed the words in silence. The idea of his grandfather being part of something that violated nature unsettled him deeply. If he helped build this, why did he seal it? The being turned its gaze downward. Because he understood what it would become. He tried to undo what others had done, but it was too late. The veil had already bound itself to the living world. They reached a bridge that crossed the chamber. The cables around it pulsed brighter, reacting to Elias's presence. His footsteps triggered faint vibrations in the structure. At the center of the bridge was a small platform, upon which floated a crystalline sphere similar to the observation orb, but larger. Brighter, more intricate, it rotated slowly, casting rippling light across the chamber. Etched across its surface were words in both English and an unknown script. Elias stepped closer, reading aloud. "Ward access point, bloodline synchronization required." The being watched him solemnly. "It calls for you." Elias hesitated, then pressed his palm against the sphere. It was cold at first, then warmth flooded through his hand, spreading up his arm and into his chest. The chamber around him dissolved into white light. Suddenly, he was somewhere else. He stood in a sunlit field, the forest around him alive with birdsong. His grandfather stood a few feet away, younger, strong, wearing his old ranger's uniform. The man turned slowly, meeting Elias's gaze with sad eyes. "I hoped it wouldn't come to this," the vision said. "If you're seeing this, the veil has begun to wake again." Elias took a step forward, heart pounding. "You knew this would happen." "I tried to stop it," the vision continued, voice steady but weary. "But the others wouldn't listen. The project wasn't about protection, it was about control. They wanted to harness what lay beneath, to turn the veil into a weapon. When it turned against them, we sealed it here." The image flickered, static creeping along the edges. "Elias, if the neural conduits are active again, it means the seal is failing. You must decide whether to restore it or let it die. But understand this, if it dies, the forest above will too." The vision paused. "And one more thing. The veil is not evil. It's alive. It remembers everything, including love, fear, and loss. Treat it not as an enemy, but as something wounded." The image faded, replaced by a single line of text. "The core awaits your choice." Elias blinked as the world returned. The being stood beside him, its expression unreadable. "You saw him," it said softly. "Yes," Elias whispered. "He knew this would happen. He warned me." "Then you understand the cost," the being said. "To repair the seal means binding the veil again, cutting it off from the surface forever. It will sleep, but it will never heal. And if I don't, then it will awaken fully. And when it does, it will reshape everything above it to survive. The forest will change. And so will you." Elias looked down into the abyss, where the cables pulsed faster now, like a heartbeat nearing panic. "How long do we have?" "Not long," the being said. "The sentinels are converging. The spine is their path. Once they reach the core, they'll destroy everything to stop the awakening." Elias took one last look upward at the endless network of glowing veins stretching into darkness. "Then we go down," he said. The being stepped beside him. "There's no guarantee we'll return." There never was. Together they moved toward the lift platform at the edge of the bridge, a circular disc suspended by thick strands of cable. Elias placed the resonance core key into the slot at its center. The platform trembled, then began to descend, slowly, steadily, into the shimmering depths. As the light from above faded, Elias looked at the being. "What happens if we reach the core?" The being's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "You will see the truth behind all things, the first breath." And the final dream, the hum of the neural spine grew louder, vibrating through the air like the sound of a giant heartbeat. And as the platform sank deeper into the living labyrinth, Elias couldn't help but feel that he was no longer descending into a machine, but into the memory of the earth itself. The descent ended in silence. The lift shuddered to a halt, suspended above a cavern so vast Elias couldn't see the edges. The walls pulsed faintly, alive with flowing light. Every pulse carried a rhythm, a deep, steady beat that echoed through his bones. He stepped off cautiously. The floor beneath him was transparent, revealing layers of glowing structures beneath, like neural tissue suspended in crystal. The being followed close behind, its dim light resonating softly with the chamber's pulse. "This is it," Elias murmured. "The deep core." The being nodded. "The heart of the veil, the place where memory becomes matter." They advanced through the transparent walkway toward a glowing structure at the center, a massive, flower-like lattice of energy, slowly opening and closing as if breathing. At its center floated a sphere of pure light, pulsing in time with the rhythm of the earth. Elias felt a warmth spreading through him, almost like the place recognized him. "It feels alive." "It is," the being said quietly. "This is the core heart. It remembers the first seed planted, the first root that touched the world. Everything above grows from what began here." Elias gazed in awe. "My grandfather helped build this?" The being looked at him with sorrow. "He didn't build it. He found it. The veil was never constructed, it was discovered. The base was built around it, an attempt to understand what no one could control." The realization sank deep into Elias's mind. The structure wasn't man-made. It was something ancient, something the earth itself had birthed long before humanity. His grandfather had only tried to keep it hidden. The core heart brightened suddenly, sending streams of light arcing across the cavern. Symbols and fragments of memory flickered in mid-air. Images of scientists in white suits, engineers panicking as alarms blared, his grandfather shouting orders to evacuate. Then came a voice, clear, resonant, and distinctly human. "Containment breached. The organism is not hostile, it's reactive. It mirrors emotion. Fear amplifies it. Hope calms it. We misunderstood it from the beginning." Elias swallowed hard. "It reacts to emotion?" The being nodded. "It mirrors the consciousness of those who touch it. That is why your bloodline was chosen. Those with balance of will and compassion could soothe the veil." Elias stepped forward, feeling the hum grow stronger as he neared the lattice. "Then maybe I can reach it." The being caught his arm. "Be careful. The core heart can shape what it perceives. If it senses conflict within you, it may make it real." Elias nodded, placing his hand against the lattice. The instant he touched it, light engulfed him. His mind flooded with visions, flashes of his childhood. The forest where he grew up, his father teaching him to track animal trails. The smell of pine and rain, then darker memories, the day his father disappeared. The years of silence that followed, the guilt he carried for not saving him, a voice, his grandfather's, echoed through the light. "The forest is a living memory, Elias. Every root remembers. Every leaf listens." He tried to speak but found himself surrounded by shadows, humanoid shapes, hundreds of them, all glowing faintly. Their faces were serene, eyes filled with light. "Who are you?" he asked. "We are the remnants," they said in unison, voices calm, almost musical. "Echoes of those who served the veil. Our thoughts remain to guide it." Elias looked around. You're still alive in it, the echoes smiled. In a way. Life and memory are not so different here. You carry both. He turned back to the core heart. What do you want from me? The light pulsed gently. The voices whispered together, forming words that vibrated through the chamber. Choice. Restoration or release, Elias frowned. You want me to decide whether to keep you sealed or let you awaken. The being standing at the edge of the platform nodded. If you restore the seal, the veil will sleep again. It will protect the world, but it will never remember. If you release it, the balance may shift, and the forest above will change forever. Elias took a deep breath. If it's alive, if it feels, maybe it deserves freedom. The being's eyes flickered. Freedom comes with cost. The world above is not ready for what breathes below. The veil's awakening will not be peaceful. Elias turned toward it. Neither is keeping something alive locked in a cage. The forest breathes with you now. He pulled his hand back, breath catching. You're still here. The whisper deepened, echoing faintly around him, almost like the rustle of leaves. I am everywhere the veil touches. You opened the gate, Elias. Now the Watchers have awakened. The Watchers? Elias murmured. But there was no answer. The sky rippled. He looked up and froze again. Faint hexagonal patterns shimmered above the clouds, vast geometric shapes bending the sunlight. They formed a translucent lattice that extended beyond sight, a faint reminder of the veil's digital nature now woven into the atmosphere. For the first time, Elias wondered whether the world itself was becoming something other. A faint explosion echoed in the distance. He turned toward the valley. Plumes of smoke rose where the military convoy had been stationed earlier. Whatever technology they'd brought clearly didn't survive the surge. He hesitated, torn between returning to check for survivors and retreating deeper into this new wilderness that now seemed to welcome him. He chose to move forward. Every step revealed more changes. Flowers bloomed from cracks in the earth, petals glowing faintly even in daylight. Streams carried liquid that refracted light like molten glass. Moss spread faster than he'd ever seen, crawling over fallen branches as if time had sped up for nature alone. He reached the clearing where the fallen pine once concealed the hatch. The hatch was gone, replaced by a smooth patch of ground covered in soft, luminous moss. The entrance to the underground base had sealed completely, as if the earth had decided to erase the wound. Elias knelt, pressing his palm to it. The hum resonated again through his bones. You're healing, he whispered. But what happens to the world outside this forest? The wind shifted, carrying the faint crackle of distant radios, helicopters, shouts, human voices. The military was still out there, but their presence felt fragile, small, like an echo of a world that no longer ruled this one. As he stood, a faint shimmer appeared before him, particles gathering in midair until they shaped the outline of a figure. The being, its form now more ethereal, composed of light and mist. You did not destroy them, it said, but you changed the rules of their existence. Elias stared, awe mixing with fear. You said balance. Is this what balance looks like? Rewriting the laws of the world. Balance is not destruction, the being said gently. It is remembrance. For too long, the human world built walls against the unknown. The veil has lifted those walls. Now what you call nature will decide what remains. He tried to steady his breath. And me? What happens to me now? The being tilted its head, eyes glowing softly. You are the bridge. The forest remembers you. The veil listens through you. What you choose next determines how humanity learns to live with what you've freed. The being began to fade, light scattering into the air like dust in sunlight. Wait! Elias reached out. I don't even understand what it wants! The voice lingered one last time, whisper soft. Then listen, Elias. The answers are already speaking through the wind. Silence. Only the hum of the forest remained. He stood alone in the clearing, the dawn deepening into golden light. The world shimmered with quiet brilliance, every living thing connected by threads he could no longer see but deeply feel. He felt small, and yet somehow integral to the vast pulse around him. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang. Its echo traveled farther than sound should reach, carried on unseen frequencies. Elias listened. The world was no longer asleep, and neither was he. The forest's bioluminescent shimmer faded gradually as Elias walked toward the valley road. Dawn had fully arrived, but the light was strange, warmer, almost too pure, like the sun was filtering through invisible glass. The birds sang in perfect rhythm, every chirp aligned to the same quiet pulse beneath the soil. Elias could still feel it through his boots, steady as a heartbeat. The vale's rhythm. The gravel road that led to the nearest town, Silverton, was cracked and half-covered in creeping moss. He hadn't been here since the storm. Now the air felt charged, heavy with ozone and dew. As he rounded the bend, he stopped. The sign that once read, "Welcome to Silverton," shimmered faintly, its letters glowing as if traced by invisible light. It wasn't paint, it was energy. Elias touched the metal. The surface felt warm, alive, and for an instant he saw an image not his own. A flash of a child running through the same forest. Laughing, a memory that wasn't his. He pulled his hand back sharply. Breath caught. "The vale's reaching this far already," he murmured. Silverton was quiet when he entered. The familiar row of cabins and the diner by the intersection looked unchanged, yet eerily wrong. Windows reflected no light. Cars sat abandoned mid-street, doors open, keys dangling. The hum of the forest followed him even here, echoing faintly against the brick walls. He pushed open the diner door. The bell above it chimed once, too loud in the silence. The place smelled faintly of coffee and pine resin. Mugs sat half full on tables, steam long gone cold. "Hello?" His voice cracked through the air. "Anyone here?" No answer. On the counter, a small television flickered with static. Then suddenly an image flashed, a news anchor frozen mid-sentence, eyes staring blankly. The sound came through fragmented, skipping like a broken record. "Fuel containment breach. National emergency declared. Unknown atmospheric." Static again. Then Black Elias moved behind the counter, scanning for supplies. His eyes caught something glinting beneath the register, a shard of glass, clear but glowing faintly blue. When he picked it up, the air seemed to warp slightly, like the air before lightning strikes. The shard pulsed once, and he saw something, a woman, one of the waitresses, standing right where he was, smiling at a customer. Then her image rippled, her face distorting, her body dissolving into light. The diner returned to emptiness. The shard's glow dimmed in his palm. He pocketed it slowly. The memory glass, that's what it felt like, a fragment of reality the veil had recorded, rewriting what it couldn't contain. Outside, he saw the first movement since arriving. A man stood near the hardware store, motionless, eyes fixed upward. Elias approached cautiously. The man's skin shimmered faintly with the same pattern as the trees, veins of soft blue light beneath his skin. "Sir," Elias said gently. "Can you hear me?" The man turned his head slowly. His pupils glowed faintly, his expression calm, detached. "Do you hear it too?" he whispered. Elias hesitated. "Hear what?" "The breathing," the man said softly. "The world's breathing again. We're part of it now." Elias stepped closer. "What happened here?" "Where is everyone?" "They didn't listen," the man replied, gaze unfocused. "They ran, but you can't run from what's in your blood." Then, as suddenly as he'd spoken, he smiled. A serene, almost holy smile, and walked into the street, vanishing into thin air. Not fading, not dissolving, simply ceasing to exist. Elias froze where he stood, the faint hum of the veil now louder than ever, resonating inside his chest. The forest wasn't just influencing nature anymore. It was rewriting humanity. He hurried to the ranger outpost at the edge of town, his old workplace. The door creaked open, hinges rusted. Inside, everything was coated in a thin layer of dust and static shimmer. He switched on the emergency generator. It sputtered, then came alive. Dim lights flickered. On his desk lay his old logbook. He flipped through the pages. Every record he'd ever written was still there, but the ink shimmered faintly, rewriting itself before his eyes. Dates changed, words rearranged, Entries he knew he'd written, like maintenance on fire tower or trail inspection, morphed into new lines. A route network expanding, signal pulsing from beneath. She is awake. His hands trembled as he shut the book. The radio on the wall crackled again. Ranger Ward, do you copy? This time the voice was familiar. Captain Harris, his commanding officer. Sir, I'm here, Elias said quickly. I made it to Silverton. It's changing. People are gone or different, Ward, Harris said, voice grim. Satellite scans show an electromagnetic anomaly expanding outward from your position. A circular radius, 50 miles and growing. We're pulling teams back. Evacs on standby. You don't understand, Elias replied. It's not radiation or contamination. The Vale's consciousness, whatever it was, it's spreading into everything. The forest, the town, even people. It's rewriting memory. A long pause on the other end. Then Harris said quietly, Son, you need to get out of there. Elias looked through the window. The streetlights were glowing brighter now, veins of blue running through the poles like arteries. It's too late for that, he whispered. The forest isn't separate from us anymore. The signal crackled violently, then went dead. He turned back to the memory glass, still faintly glowing in his hand. When he held it up to the window, he saw dozens of faint outlines walking through the streets, ghostly silhouettes, shimmering echoes of townspeople frozen in time. They weren't gone. They were absorbed, preserved in the Vale's memory. Elias lowered the shard, heart pounding. You didn't take them, he whispered. You kept them. The wind stirred outside, carrying the faint hum of 1,000 voices, soft, harmonic, peaceful. He couldn't tell if it was the people he'd lost, the forest itself, or something entirely new. For the first time, Elias understood the being's words. The Vale wasn't destroying life. It was merging it, turning memory into matter, consciousness into continuity. He pocketed the shard again, breath steadying. Then I have to find where it ends. Outside, the glowing wind stirred the trees. The forest seemed to lean toward him, guiding him, and as Elias left the town behind, he realized the question wasn't how to stop the Vale, but whether the world should be stopped from becoming what it was always meant to be. The road that once led out of Silverton no longer looked man-made. Asphalt had cracked open, giving way to networks of glowing roots that pulsed like veins beneath translucent soil. Elias followed the faint path eastward, the same direction the light seemed to beckon. Each step hummed softly beneath his boots, alive, aware, patient. The forest canopy arched overhead, taller now, broader. The trees seemed to have grown overnight, their branches woven together into natural tunnels of light. Occasionally, the air rippled as though something unseen brushed past him, and he caught fleeting glimpses of faint silhouettes, men, women, children, walking along paths that no longer existed in his world. Echoes of the absorbed. He didn't speak aloud anymore. Words felt too small for what surrounded him. The silence was symphonic, full of whispers, rustling leaves, and faint heartbeats. The Vale was no longer beneath him. It had ascended, woven itself into every molecule of air and earth. After an hour of walking, Elias came upon what looked like a dried riverbed. Except it wasn't dry. Beneath the thin layer of dust ran a slow current of light, like molten glass. He knelt, brushing away the surface, until the substance shimmered through. It was warm to the touch, pulsing with energy that throbbed in perfect rhythm to his heartbeat. The voice came not from the air, but from within his thoughts, gentle and deep. You're following the path of confluence. Elias exhaled slowly. You again, he murmured. We never left. You are walking through the memory of the Vale, the map your grandfather once sealed. The air shimmered faintly, and for a moment Elias saw images projected against the tree line. His grandfather, younger men in military uniforms, scientists operating consoles within the old base. He saw the moment they first breached the core, the flash of light, the faces turning in awe and fear. Then the images faded, dissolving into fireflies. Why are you showing me this? Elias asked softly. Why me? Because your bloodline closed the wound. It must also decide how it heals. He stood again, looking down the glowing riverbed. It seemed to stretch endlessly toward the mountains. So this is where it ends. Where it begins again, the voice replied. He started walking, following the river of light deeper into the valley. The air grew warmer, filled with drifting motes that illuminated the trail ahead. Occasionally the ground trembled softly beneath him, not with violence, but like something enormous shifting far below. Elias thought about the town, about the people absorbed into memory, the waitress, the man on the street, the silent ghosts within the memory glass. Were they lost, or had they simply become part of something greater? He couldn't tell anymore. He only knew the old definitions. Life, death, self were losing meaning the farther he went. The path opened into a wide clearing encircled by massive trees whose roots formed living arches. The glow intensified here, weaving into spirals that climbed the trunks. In the center stood something impossible, a massive column of light twisting upward into the sky, vanishing into the clouds. It wasn't solid, but structured. Geometric patterns folded within it like the inside of a crystal. At its base, resting among moss and roots, was a circular platform, the same design as the lift deep below, but alive, overgrown, humming softly. As Elias approached, symbols flared across its surface, patterns he recognized from the neural spine. The voice spoke again, closer now. This is the threshold. Beyond it lies the convergence point. Elias ran his hand across the platform. And what happens there? Decision, the voice replied. The veil has reached equilibrium, but its reach grows. It will not stop unless told to. Humanity can merge or remember separation. Both paths lead forward. Only one can remain. The wind rustled the branches above, and for the first time Elias sensed choice, a genuine moral weight pressing against him. The veil wasn't forcing him. It was asking. He sat at the edge of the platform, breathing slowly, letting the pulse of the ground align with his own. If I let it keep spreading, he said aloud, what happens to the world? It will awaken, the voice said softly. Borders will vanish. Memory will no longer end with death. The living and the remembered will exist as one continuum. The forest will not die, nor will man, but both will become something neither fully understands. And if I stop it? Elias asked. Then silence returns. The veil will sleep, and the world will forget what it once was. He closed his eyes, feeling the ache in his chest. His whole life had been built around protecting the forest, maintaining balance between people and nature. But what if the balance had always been an illusion? What if the forest was finally claiming its right to remember? The platform brightened, sensing his doubt, or perhaps his understanding. He stood, placing his palm in its center. The surface rippled like water, and the column of light in the clearing began to descend, spiraling toward him. For a moment, everything went still. The hum, the light, the air, suspended in pure silence. Then the forest itself exhaled. The trees bowed inward, roots shifting, soil glowing. Streams of light from every direction converged toward the platform, merging into the column. Elias shielded his eyes as it enveloped him. He saw flashes. His childhood, his grandfather's face, the forest during spring floods, the glow of the veil's heart deep underground. He felt everything as one continuous thread. Every moment not separate but eternal. Then, just as suddenly, the light withdrew. The clearing dimmed. Only a faint pulse remained at his feet, waiting. The voice spoke one final time. The confluence awaits your will. Elias Ward. Choose what the world becomes. He stood alone in the trembling quiet, surrounded by the glowing forest, the decision echoing within him. Every breath felt shared now, his own lungs, the leaves, the earth itself. Somewhere above, thunder rumbled softly. The sky shimmered between dawn and dusk, as if time couldn't decide which it should be. Elias looked up, eyes reflecting the glow. Then let me see what waking truly means. The world around Elias trembled with a strange harmony, neither violent nor peaceful, but poised, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. The air shimmered faintly with shifting light, forming a corridor that drew him onward. Each step echoed softly against the pulsing ground, which now resembled glass infused with veins of living energy. He had no sense of time anymore. The sky above glowed with an impossible gradient, half twilight, half dawn. It was neither day nor night, neither past nor future. It was. At the end of the luminous path stood a vast clearing, circular and utterly still. In its center floated the heart prism, a massive crystalline form shaped like two mirrored pyramids joined at their base. Light refracted through it in cascading waves, casting dancing auroras across the valley. As Elias approached, faint silhouettes appeared around the perimeter of the clearing. Dozens, no, hundreds of them. Men and women in old ranger uniforms, miners, soldiers, and townsfolk. Their faces flickered like candlelight, translucent but unmistakably human. The absorbed. They watched silently as he stepped closer to the prism. A deep vibration rolled through the earth. The ground responded to his heartbeat. The prism turned slowly as though aware of him. Then the voice, now vast, resonant, layered with countless tones, filled the clearing. "You have come to the end of separation, Elias Ward." He swallowed hard. "This is the Veil's heart. It is more than that. It is the memory of everything that was forgotten." He looked around at the ghostly crowd. "They're still alive in there? Alive in every way that matters. Remembered, eternal, freed from decay. But they didn't choose this," Elias said, his voice low. "You took them." The prism pulsed, and faint whispers drifted through the air, voices overlapping, human and soft. "We wanted to stay. We are part of it now. Do not mourn us," Elias's breath caught. The voices weren't pleading. They were peaceful, serene. Each word carried weight and calmness that felt beyond human fear. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Because you are the bridge," the voice replied. "Your bloodline sealed the veil once. You can choose to open it fully or close it forever." He glanced at the glowing earth beneath his boots. "If I open it, humanity changes forever. There'll be no going back. There is never a going back. Only remembering what you were meant to become." Elias hesitated. The prism drew him closer. Its light was mesmerizing. Endless patterns folding within patterns, reflections of thoughts, faces, and memories. He saw his father as a young man, his grandfather's trembling hands sealing the underground chamber, and himself as a boy holding a broken compass. The voice softened. "He tried to protect you from what he didn't understand. But you were never meant to live apart from the living world. The veil is not a curse, it is connection." A warmth spread through his chest. He felt his heartbeat synchronize with the rhythm in the ground. The forest shimmered around him, and for a moment the entire clearing seemed alive, breathing with him. But then another sound echoed, a faint, rhythmic thudding from behind. He turned. From the edge of the clearing emerged three figures, solid and human, soldiers, the same insignia he'd seen in the base. Their armor was coated in dull light, and they carried what looked like pulse rifles. "Elias Ward," the one in front called, his voice amplified. "Step away from the structure." Elias froze. "Who are you?" "We're with the Restoration Corps. You've gone too far. That thing is rewriting neural patterns across the grid." "Step away now," the Veil's voice whispered in his mind. "They seek to erase what they fear." The soldier raised his weapon. "This isn't about fear. That machine is infecting the planet. We have a failsafe in orbit. Step back or we end this for good." Elias's pulse raced. He looked at the prism, then at the soldiers. The glow intensified, as if reacting to his conflict. The earth trembled again, softly at first, then violently. From the forest edge came the ghostly figures again, the absorbed townsfolk, moving toward the clearing like waves of light. The soldiers stumbled backward, weapons raised. "What the hell is this?" one shouted. Elias stood between them and the prism. "They're not attacking," he said. "They're protecting it," the lead soldier yelled. "Move or I'll—" He never finished. The ground beneath them opened slightly, and the roots themselves coiled upward, holding the soldiers in place, not to kill, but to restrain. Elias turned back toward the prism. Its surface rippled, revealing an image of his face, then his grandfather's, then dozens of others, all merging into one. "Choice is not destruction," the voice said. "It is transformation." He took a deep breath. If I say yes, if I let this happen, what becomes of us? You remember everything. You cease to be fragments. You live within all things. Elias stepped forward, placing both hands on the prism. It was warm and alive beneath his palms. The moment his skin touched it, every thought, memory, and heartbeat inside him expanded outward. He saw the forest from above, the rivers glowing like veins, mountains shimmering with buried light. He saw every person he'd ever known, alive, dead, forgotten, all woven together in one great network of memory, and then a voice within him, his own. Small but steady, whispered, "Let us not erase, but evolve." The prism blazed. The world exploded into color. The soldiers screamed, not in pain but in awe, as light flooded through the clearing. When the brightness faded, Elias stood alone once more. The soldiers were gone, the ghosts had dissolved, and the prism hovered quietly, pulsing in rhythm with his breath. The veil spoke softly, like wind through leaves. "The world has heard you, Elias Ward. The awakening begins." He looked around. The forest was alive with radiant veins of light, stretching toward the horizon, blending seamlessly with the sky. The earth itself was remembering. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the stillness, whispering, "So this is what it means to wake." When Elias opened his eyes, dawn had broken, though the sky didn't look like any dawn he'd ever known. It shimmered with faint silver bands, and the clouds rippled with a soft, inner luminescence. The forest no longer whispered, it breathed. Each tree, each blade of grass pulsed in rhythm with a deep, unearthly heartbeat that resonated through the soil. He stood slowly, unsteady on his feet. The clearing where the heart prism had hovered was now an enormous crater of glowing moss. At the center, a faint crystal shard pulsed weakly, the echo root. It was small, no bigger than his hand, but alive. Elias reached down, brushing away the soft earth. The shard's surface shifted beneath his fingers like liquid glass. The hum that once came from below was now everywhere, gentle, omnipresent, like the entire forest was tuned to one note. He whispered, "What did I do?" The shard responded, not with words, but with impressions, flashes of the forest expanding, light pouring through roots and rivers. Old machines awakening beneath mountains, cities flickering on the horizon. Humanity had felt it too. He staggered back, gripping the shard tightly. He could see through it. Visions of the nearby town flashed before his eyes, lights flickering, people stumbling out of their homes, clutching their heads as if hearing something new. The world wasn't ending, it was listening. By mid-morning, the air grew strange. Birds flew in perfect synchronized arcs. The wind carried whispers that sounded almost like language. Elias walked toward the old ranger cabin, now half overgrown by roots glowing from underneath. The forest around him seemed to lean closer, watching him pass. At the edge of the path, he found the wreck of a helicopter, the same kind that had brought the soldiers. Its metal was cracked open, but the cockpit was empty. Vines had already begun weaving through the frame. The machine wasn't decaying. It was being absorbed. He crouched and ran his hand along the metal. A faint spark jumped to his skin, an echo of the soldier's voice. "Restoration Corps, Unit 7. We've lost visual on the target. Repeat." Then static, silence. He pulled away, heart pounding. The forest was claiming everything that touched it. At the cabin door, he hesitated. The structure was covered in moss, roots pushing between the floorboards, walls breathing gently as if alive. Inside, the maps on the wall had changed, drawn in glowing lines showing not roads or rivers, but veins of energy running across the region. The Veil Network. In the center of the room, the old radio flickered to life on its own. A man's voice came through, distorted but urgent. "Any survivors north of Clearwater Basin, respond. Massive power surges detected. Communication lines collapsing. Multiple atmospheric anomalies reported over Montana, Oregon, and Northern California. If you can hear this, stay inside. Do not approach." Static swallowed the rest. Elias lowered himself into a chair, staring at the radio. The world beyond the forest was unraveling or transforming. He wasn't sure which. The echo root in his hand pulsed again, and a whisper filled his thoughts. They are frightened. But they will remember soon, he frowned. Remember what? That they were never separate from the living world. Only asleep, he shook his head. You talk like it's salvation. But this is chaos. All birth begins in chaos. He wanted to argue, but the truth was there in the rhythm of the trees, in the calm beneath his fear. He could feel the earth thinking, adjusting, healing. By afternoon, a vehicle engine echoed down the dirt trail, a low, guttural growl that didn't belong here. Elias stepped outside, shielding his eyes. A black SUV rolled into the clearing, half sunk in mud. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out, late 30s, sharp features, her clothes streaked with ash. He recognized her instantly. Dr. Maren Holt, the lead scientist from the research base, the one who had warned him not to dig. She looked shaken but alive. "Ward," she said, voice hoarse. "You survived." "Barely," he replied. "What's happening out there?" Maren scanned the trees, her expression unreadable. The network activated globally. Satellites, old grid lines, every dormant system tied to the Vale's frequency, it's all online. And the military's panicking. They think you triggered a biodigital event. He laughed dryly. "Maybe I did." She stepped closer, eyes narrowing at the shard in his hand. "That's a living node, isn't it?" "Echo root," he said softly. "It's spreading." Her tone hardened. "You don't understand. The Vale wasn't supposed to awaken yet. It was a containment field, not a bridge. The prism you touched," he cut her off. "It showed me everything, what it really was. You tried to bury it because we were never meant to merge with it." Maren's voice broke. "It doesn't just change the earth, it changes us." Elias stepped back, clutching the shard tighter. "Maybe that's the point." Maren reached out, desperate. "Ward, listen to me. Once full integration begins, there's no turning it off. Every human mind will sync with the Vale's frequency. You won't know where you end and it begins. You'll lose yourself." He looked toward the glowing forest. "Maybe that's what we've needed all along." Her face twisted with fear. "You sound like them." Before she could say more, a distant rumble echoed through the valley, a sound like thunder, but mechanical, deeper. Maren turned sharply toward the horizon. "They're coming," she whispered. "The core. They're going to burn the entire sector." Elias's grip tightened around the echo root. It pulsed rapidly, almost like a heartbeat responding to danger. He looked at her. "Then I need to move fast." "Where?" she asked. He turned toward the forest, where light veins ran upward through the trunks like molten gold. "To where it began. The convergence is still expanding. If I can guide it, maybe I can stop them from destroying it." Maren hesitated, torn between reason and awe. Finally she nodded. "Then I'm coming with you." Elias gave a faint smile. "You might not like what we find." "I already don't," she said, grabbing her pack. "But I'm not letting them erase what we just witnessed." As they disappeared into the living forest, the light of the echo root spread quietly through the soil, threading beneath the trees, carrying the memory of awakening toward every horizon. The deeper Elias and Maren ventured into the forest, the more unreal the world became. The air shimmered faintly, as if the atmosphere had turned to liquid glass. Branches bent aside for them. Moss lit their path with soft, rhythmic light. And the hum, once faint and buried, now rolled like an ocean beneath their feet. No birds sang, yet the silence was alive, vibrating with invisible awareness. Every step they took echoed in layers, past, present, and something beyond both. Maren kept glancing around nervously. "It's like walking through a heartbeat," she murmured. Elias nodded. "It feels like it's watching us." It is. The Vale doesn't just react, it learns. We're inside its living code now. Ahead, a faint radiance broke through the fog, diffused like moonlight through water. The ground dipped into a hollow where roots the size of bridges wove together, forming a vast, breathing dome. In its center, suspended above a shallow pool, floated a sphere of light, slowly pulsing like the world's oldest heart, the Vale heart. They stopped at the edge of the pool. The surface reflected not their faces, but their memories. Elias saw himself as a young ranger, proud, naive, unaware of what lay beneath his forest. He saw his late wife, Anna, sitting on the porch swing, sunlight soft in her hair. She smiled faintly as though recognizing him through the shimmer. He took a step closer. "Anna!" The image flickered. Then came her voice, not sound, but resonance inside him. "You never left me. You were always walking toward this." He froze. "What is this place?" Marin's voice trembled. "It's not just a machine. It's a memory lattice. Every consciousness it's touched, it preserves them. The veil is built from what we've lost." Elias's hand brushed the echo root in his pocket. It pulsed in rhythm with the light, almost eager. Marin approached the veil heart cautiously, scanning it with a handheld sensor. The readings spiked beyond range. It's merging data from every connected node. Biological, digital, emotional, it's rewriting the ecosystem's memory architecture. He frowned. "Plain English, Doctor. It's becoming a single organism, with us as part of its mind." Elias studied the glowing sphere. "So this is what the military wanted to control." She nodded grimly. "And what my team tried to bury. We thought we were protecting humanity from itself. But maybe we were protecting something much older from us." The air thickened. The veil heart flared brighter, and voices echoed, not in sound, but feeling. Fragments of thoughts, whispers of generations, the breath of the earth itself. Elias felt his knees weaken under the flood of emotion. Sorrow, love, awe, and a patience older than mankind. "Why do you fear what remembers you?" The voice asked within him. He managed a shaky breath. "Because memory cuts both ways." The ground trembled. The forest shuddered, and far off, the rumble of approaching engines grew louder. The military's advance. Marin's eyes widened. "They're close. They'll flatten this place." Elias turned toward the sound, his jaw tight. "Then we have one chance to make them understand." She shook her head. "You can't reason with what they don't believe in." He looked back at the sphere. "Then I'll show them." He pulled the echo root from his pocket and stepped into the pool. The moment his boots touched the water, it began to glow, sending ripples of light through the chamber. The veil heart pulsed faster, reacting to his presence. Marin shouted, "Ward! What are you doing?" He didn't answer. The shard in his hand burned with warmth, its energy mingling with the heart's glow. Then connection. For a breathless instant, Elias's mind opened wide. He saw everything. The world from above, rivers flowing like veins, forests breathing, cities flickering like neural sparks. Humanity and nature mirrored, two halves of the same intelligence, divided only by forgetting. He understood then. The veil wasn't built to control. It was built to restore. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of both man and forest. "If they come to destroy this, they'll destroy themselves." Marin covered her face, shielding her eyes from the blinding light. "You can't stop them alone." Elias turned toward her, eyes aglow with faint golden light. "I'm not alone anymore." Outside the dome, the first wave of aircraft broke through the clouds. The roar of engines shook the valley, scattering leaves like ashes. A deep rumble followed, the tremor of tanks approaching the ridge. But as the machines advanced, the ground began to shift beneath them. Roots erupted from the soil, not violently, but with deliberate strength, curling around the vehicles and lifting them gently off the ground. The forest wasn't attacking, it was shielding itself. From the center of the dome, a beam of light rose, pure and silent, piercing the sky. For miles around, everything stilled. Even the engines faltered, drowned by a soundless pulse that vibrated in the bones. Elias stood at the heart of it all, connected fully now, his thoughts woven into the living network. The veil's voice spoke through him, calm and resolute. No more forgetting, no more division. Above, the helicopters hovered in confusion, their pilots disoriented by systems failing one by one. Marin could only watch, tears streaking her dirt-covered face. She whispered, "He's become part of it." The veil heart pulsed one final time, brighter than the sun, and the entire forest bent in a slow, graceful bow, as if acknowledging a king returning home. The light spread outward, rolling like dawn over the mountains. Every living thing stilled, then exhaled together. When it faded, the engines were silent. The forest stood renewed, breathing, whole, and Elias Ward was gone. Only the faint hum remained, steady and eternal beneath the roots of the world. Dawn broke with a strange stillness. The forest stretched wide and silent, bathed in pale gold. Dew clung to every blade of grass, catching the light like fine glass. The air no longer hummed. It breathed soft and slow, as though the entire valley had found its rhythm again. Dr. Maren Holt stood alone at the crater's rim, her clothes torn and boots caked with mud. The night before had been a storm of light and sound, and when it passed, so too had Elias Ward. Where he'd stood now rested a pool of still water, smooth as a mirror. At its center, the faint glow of the echo root pulsed gently, steady as a heartbeat. She crouched beside it, hand trembling as she traced the reflection. For a moment, she thought she saw him there. Elias, standing among the trees, smiling faintly, the same calm light in his eyes that had filled the forest when the veil awakened. Then the image faded, and she was left only with the ripple of water and the whisper of wind through leaves. "Goodbye, Ranger," she murmured. The military never returned. By dawn, their aircraft and convoys had vanished from the valley, their systems apparently dead. Headquarters sent no signals, no orders. Satellites over the region went dark. It was as if a quiet curtain had fallen, severing the place from the rest of the world. Maren walked the trails alone for days. No maps guided her now, only the soft glows beneath her boots, where roots pulsed faintly under the soil. The veil had changed everything. Trees no longer stood as mere timber. They moved subtly, responding to touch and sound. Streams hummed faintly with low resonance. Even the air shimmered with quiet energy. One evening, as she rested by the creek, she opened Elias's old ranger journal, which she'd found near the cabin. The last page was new, his handwriting steady, calm, deliberate. "If anyone finds this, remember, the forest was never sleeping. It was waiting for us to listen. I thought I was its keeper, but it turns out it was keeping me. The veil doesn't seek worship or control. It seeks remembrance. We were never meant to command the earth, only to walk in step with it. If you carry this message forward, tell them not to fear what breathes beneath their feet. Tell them to listen." She closed the book slowly. For the first time since his disappearance, she smiled. Weeks passed before she finally descended the mountain. The nearest town, once buzzing with news of mysterious seismic events, had grown oddly quiet. Communications were still down. Power flickered on and off. People spoke in hushed tones about strange dreams, of forests growing where none had been, of machines that refused to start until someone laid a hand on the ground and whispered softly. Maren rented a small room in a weathered inn near Clearwater Basin. Each night, she'd write by candlelight, transcribing Elias's notes, her own observations and what she'd seen. At first, she wrote for science, for proof, but soon her tone shifted. The veil had changed her too. Her words became gentler, less analytical, more like prayer than report. One evening, an old woman knocked on her door. She wore a ranger's badge, tarnished but clean. "You're the one who came down from the valley," she said quietly. "People say something happened up there." "The trees look different," Maren nodded. "They are different." "They remember now," the woman frowned. "Remember what?" "That they're alive, and so are we in ways we've forgotten." The ranger studied her, then said softly, "My father used to talk about that forest, said it had a soul." Maren looked out the window toward the dark silhouette of the mountains. He was right. Months passed and the government returned. Scientists, surveyors, cautious men with machines. They called it the Clearwater Anomaly. But when they stepped into the valley, their instruments failed, their signals died, and something quiet pressed against their minds. They left within days. The area was closed off, declared a protected zone. And yet sometimes travelers reported strange lights moving between the trees. Some claimed to hear a man's voice guiding them back to safety when they were lost. Others said the forest seemed to shift paths to protect its own. Marin stayed far from the cameras and press. She visited the forest once each year, bringing with her the journal. She'd sit by the crater and read aloud, her voice soft and steady. And every time, as she reached the last line, the forest would answer with a gentle tremor, like the earth itself nodding. Years later, as age began to weigh her shoulders, Marin returned for the last time. The trail had changed, alive with quiet light and blooming moss. The pool in the crater still glowed faintly, and at its center rested the echo root, now entwined with vines and flowers. She knelt beside it, placing Elias's journal on the moss. "It's yours again," she whispered. The air shimmered. A familiar calm filled her mind, like the echo of a friend's steady voice. "You kept your promise," it said. Marin smiled, tears soft in her eyes. "So did you." The light pulsed once, warm, kind, eternal. She stayed until the stars came, the forest surrounding her in gentle silence. By morning, only the journal remained, pages fluttering softly in the breeze, its cover warmed by faint living light. In the years that followed, people came to call the place Ward's Hollow. No fences marked it, no roads led there. It existed between maps, a sanctuary of old growth and unrecorded wonder, and sometimes, when the wind was still and the forest glowed faintly beneath the moon, those who wandered too far would swear they heard a calm, familiar voice guiding them home, steady, patient, wise, the voice of a ranger who once listened long enough for the forest to speak back.